Now, next question is, list the various types of conceptual blocks that come in the way of thinking creatively. What is the process of innovation that firms should follow? Again, this question has two parts, and this question is of 15 marks. So, we have been asked about various types of conceptual blocks. Okay, so I am just suggesting you, because conceptual blocks is related to the concept of creativity. In one line, we may define what actually creativity is. So creativity is nothing that it is new way of doing things, isn't it? And what are the basic aspects of creativity? That is imagination, improvement, investment, incubation. Right? So imagination is, that is, be new. Whatever you do, that should be new. Improvement highlights, be better. Whatever you have done in the past, the and whatever you are doing in the future, that should be better than the past. Okay. Be first. Take the advantage of first mover. Incubation is be sustainable. So these are the various aspects of creativity, right? Now, after we define creativity, come to the concept of conceptual blocks. Conceptual blocks. So before before explaining the types of conceptual blocks, we must give the definition of conceptual blocks. So what are conceptual blocks? So conceptual blocks are basically obstacles, right? So what kind of obstacles I'm talking about here? Mental obstacles which restricts thinking. So conceptual blocks are nothing but these are the mental obstacles within the mind of the person which restricts his or her thinking. And these obstacles create difficulty in solving problems. Okay. And apart from this, these obstacles limit the number of alternative solutions. So it happens many a time that we do not want to think beyond certain capacity. So these obstacles restrict our thinking capability. So that is why leading to new alternatives to solve a problem, that becomes difficult. Okay. However, we should also mention here that these conceptual blocks are not always bad. They they are essential as well. Sometimes they become essential. In what conditions these mental blocks become essential? Whenever there is too much of information overload, because so much of data revolves around us, or so much information is available to us at any particular of time. That is why these conceptual blocks sometimes become essential for a person, right? In order to restrict the mind to in order to restrict the mind to take in the quantum of information, right? Okay. Next is various types of conceptual blocks. Of course, we need to discuss. So we can also use a diagram here. The more diagrams you use, the more answer marks you will fetch, right? So conceptual blocks types. That is, first is constancy, second is commitment, third is compression, and your fourth one is complacency. complacency. So these are the four types of conceptual blocks. Consistency refers to whenever there is vertical thinking. It means we are thinking that there is only one way of reaching to a solution. Okay, one way of doing a particular thing. However, that is not the case. Okay. Commitment here refers to commitment to past experiences. Whenever we are committed to our past experiences, we restrict ourselves. Okay. For example, we stereotype. So whatever stereotype kind of judgments are there in our mind, we use them and try to resolve the problem in front of us in the light of those past experiences, right? Okay. So stereotyping based on past experiences. Whatever we have learned, whatever we have faced in the past, that is being utilized by the person to resolve future problem. So he's not thinking beyond that. Okay. Compression is whenever you yourself are narrowly defining the boundaries of the problem you are facing. Narrowly defining the problems, defining the boundaries of the problems. Okay. Complacency is, it refers to non-inquisitiveness. So whenever we stop asking questions, stopping asking questions. Okay. So whenever we restrict ourselves uh, from asking questions, that refers to complacency kind of conceptual block. Okay. So first part is over. Next part is what is the process of innovation that firms should follow. Now read the question twice. What is the process of innovation that firms should follow? So here we have to tell the process of innovation, okay, as per basic understanding. But if you go through into the deeper meaning of the question, they are saying that firms should follow. They are in the question, it's been mentioned here. Process of innovation, firm should follow. So you need to suggest to the examiner that according to you, how innovation in an organization can be fostered. What are the ways by which the innovation can be fostered? It means the basic standard process of innovation is not being asked. The techniques or methods of fostering innovation, they are being asked here. Okay, clear? So we will be discussing those techniques or ways one by one. So here, first one, the techniques or methods of innovation through which uh, it can be fostered. We are going to discuss next. Okay. So first is Gordon technique. So now we'll be discussing the techniques or methods of fostering innovation. Of course, fostering innovation among whom? Among employees of any organization, right? Employees, entrepreneurs, or businessmen, right? Okay. So first among these techniques is first is Gordon technique, right? Next is your synectics. Okay, next is your idea checklist. Next is attribute listing. And then is your checkerboard method. And next is your retroduction. So Gordon techniques emphasize that the person should be told about area of focus rather than what has to be innovated. Okay, so what does this mean? Like, for example, we should tell the person that area of focus is to capture, rather being telling him that we need to innovate mousetrap. Okay, so this is the kind of technique the Gordon is referring to. Synectics is basically it highlights the use of analogical thinking. Analogical thinking. So many people are involved in discussion to reach onto the solution of the problem so that different perspectives can be collected. Okay, idea checklist is that basically it spurs questions, which means that asking questions from the employees that how can we use a particular thing uh, in a new way which is already in existence. Okay, like for example Zepto. So we can ask for alternative uses. So what is the alternative list of all the essentials which are required to be delivered to the customers in the morning? So in this way idea checklist is prepared, right? Okay, so uh, if I have to tell you the just in time technique that has been also explored on the basis of this idea checklist. Okay, okay, attribute listing. Coming to attribute listing basically it has two main aspects, that is one is attribute modification and another is attribute transferring. So attribute modification, so both the names are suggesting themselves. Attribute modification is whenever we are trying to modify the existing attributes of the products in which the company is dealing. Attribute transferring is whenever the same attributes are going to be transferred to the new product. Okay, so in modification you can take the example of smartphones, you can take the examples of namak wala toothpaste or detergent with the lemon ingredients, right? So these kind of things, that is called attribute listing. Okay, so there are various attributes of the products. We know that, like for example, shape, size, price, cost, anything can act as attribute. Okay, so attribute listing is this. Checkerboard method. So checkerboard, in a checkerboard method, basically 2 to 3 attributes are listed on a matrix. Okay, so this kind of matrix can be used, like for example, if we are, this is going to act as a matrix. On one axis we are writing shape, on what axis we are talking about thickness or thinness of the product, on other axis we are talking about color, we are talking about like for example pricing. Okay, so these are the axis, these are basically the again the another form of attribute listing, but here we are working on 2 to 3 attributes simultaneously. Okay, to get various idea combinations. Okay, so we are working on idea combinations here. So by weighing the positives and negatives of combining different attributes of the product, we can reach to certain solutions. Okay. Retroduction is changing the assumption. So we all have assumptions, isn't it? So either that particular assumption may be wrong. So if it is wrong, then change it. If it is right, then get the perspectives from other also. Okay, clear? Obtain the perspective of others also on this. So this is retroduction. So these are the ways by which innovation can be fostered in an organization, right? Okay. Explain the concept of culture, evaluate Hofstede's cross-cultural classification and its implication in managing under culturally diverse situations. So this question is of 20 marks. It is asking the concept of culture and Hofstede's cultural dimensions. Okay, fine. So to simply proceed with, we will define culture in layman language as well as some specific definitions of the renowned author we may also highlight. Okay, so what actually culture is? Culture is set of shared values, beliefs, or or patterns of behavior that is common uh, among a group of people, right? And along with defining the concept of culture, we must also emphasize on the need of studying the concept of culture. We must also explain this thing. So why there's a need of studying the concept of culture? Very simple, because different countries have different practices. That is why before a manager moves to any other country or any different culture, they must be mentally prepared, right? Okay, so they will not be able to gel up themselves in the culture which is new to them. Okay, so that is why at least it is very important for every manager to go through the concept which is made understood by Hofstede. Okay, so name of the person is Gert Hofstede. So we may also put emphasis on his study, that basically he studied the cultural dimensions across 40 countries, right? Then only he came to the conclusion wherein he has given to us six. What he has given: first first dimension of Hofstede study is power distance. Next is individualism versus collectivism, long term versus short term orientation. Then we have uncertainty avoidance. Okay, then we have masculinity versus femininity. And last is our restraint versus indulgence. So we need to specifically define what actually these cultural dimensions mean along with their managerial implications, right? So power distance. What do you mean by power distance? Power distance basically it refers to power inequality between superiors and subordinates. So how much a particular culture, how much a particular country gives weightage to the hierarchy in the organization, that refers to power distance. Naturally, those having high power distance, they are more hierarchical in nature. Okay. They follow more hierarchical structures. Whereas where the power distance is low in such cultures or organization, they tend to have flat structures. Flat structures. Okay. Coming on to individualism versus collectivism, this is again referring to the name itself. What actually it is, it refers to how people value themselves and the organization, whether they are giving weightage to their own individual goals or they are giving weightage to organizational goals. So cultures or societies or organizations which have values high individualistic, so basically they care about themselves only. So people in such societies care about themselves. Okay. And they are more concerned about uh, attaining self actualization needs, right? And their career progress. And in such high individualistic organizations or cultures, the group loyalty that is very low. Okay. So where this individualistic values are low, people tend to value organizational benefits more than their own interest. So organizational goals are more more valuable here, right? So coming to long term versus short term orientation, this is telling you the extent to which society views its time horizon, like whether such cultures are focusing on short term goals or long term goals. Okay. So if any culture, any organization, any society is being focused on short term goals, then it means they are more interested in short term success. They are more interested in near future outcomes. Their emphasis will be on present rather than future. Okay. And as compared to long term oriented organizations, so in comparison, long term oriented organizations or cultures, they do focus on future rather than present success. Okay. Clear. And they are more stable, so these short term, they are quite unstable. Okay. So short term, they tend to take more risk. Long term, they tend to take less risk. Okay. Clear. Uncertainty avoidance. So uncertainty avoidance means how much the culture desires to accept or refuse uncertainty, right? It means it refers to people's tolerance of ambiguity. Tolerance of ambiguity. Okay. So again, those cultures who are having high uncertainty avoidance, they will be working through more written rules in order to reduce uncertainty, right? So those having low uncertainty avoidance, then they must be having fewer written rules. Okay. Because they are they think that they are capable of handling uncertainties, and they welcome it. Okay. They take it with very confidence. Okay. Masculinity versus femininity. So masculinity means which traits are preferred by the culture, whether masculine or feminine. So whenever we are talking about masculine traits, so masculine are particularly, they are more business oriented, they are more success oriented, they okay. Whereas feminine traits are like they are having much more clarity, and they do the work in very neat manner, and they are very relationship oriented. Okay. Fine. And those cultures who are having high we call it high mass or low mass. So where high masculine genders are preferred, therein few women would be getting positions at higher level, or they would be getting less better paying jobs. Okay. And culture with low mass, in such countries or cultures, women will be getting more equitable status. Okay, so here the gender would be more inclined towards uh, masculine traits. Okay, here the culture would be more inclined towards masculine traits. Restraint versus indulgence. So restraint means whether you are having control on yourself, whether you are able to suppress your emotions, and uh, you, and the culture is running according to the norm set by the society. Okay, indulgence is whenever we are uh, inclined towards freedom, like for example Western countries. Okay, so it is the extent or tendency for a society to fulfill its desires. So whenever we are moving towards fulfilling our desires, we are inclined towards indulgence. So when we are suppressing our emotions and we are living according to the norm set by the society, it means we are restraining ourselves. Okay, so having these things in mind, the managers have to frame their mind before joining uh, organization, before handling the task of their MNCs in any other organization. So he must be aware about the people living in the overseas countries. Then only he would be able to gel up. Okay, otherwise there would be many failures. The task would not get completed, and he has to face the uh, challenges, very severe challenges. Okay, right. So these are the things that has to be kept in mind by the managers. Plain Dunlop system approach model of industrial relations. How did Bombers extend this model for international industrial relations? Okay, so this question is of 15 marks, again having two parts. And this question is straightforward, asking you Dunlop system approach of IR. And in the second part, it is asking you to focus on Bombers extension of this model to international level. Okay, so first of all, we'll be covering Dunlop system approach. Okay, so like I said, we must give the full name of the person who has developed any concept, any approach, any idea. Okay, so John T. Dunlop has given this concept system approach to IR. Fine. So according to him, every industry has certain every industry has certain rules. Okay, and these rules are the functions of three things: A, E, and I. What is that A, E, and I? A stands for A stands for actors. E stands for environmental context. So this question is again very simple. Ideology. I stands for ideology. So in any industry, before I discuss the factors affecting rules, that is actors, environmental context, and ideology, I must tell you that basically, according to Dunlop only, there are three types of rules. What are these rules? Rules are of, that is, first is your substantiative. substantiative. Next is your procedural rules. The third one is your administrative, administrative and enforcement rules. So substantiative rules are basically referring to wide variety of subjects on which rules have to be framed, like for example working conditions, for example compensation, for example social security, right? So these are the subjects. Substantiative refers to subjects whereon the rule has to be framed. Procedural refers to the procedure of forming substantiative rules. Okay, what are the methods in which substantiative rules have to be formed? That refers to procedural rules. Administrative and enforcement relates to their enforcement in the organization, how they will be applied or enforced in the organization, their applicability. Okay, now coming on to actors in this system approach. So actors, who are actors in this industrial relation approach, for whom rules have to be formed. Like for example, there must be a hierarchy of managers, then hierarchy of workers, then there is government or state which is involved in IR. Okay, so we have basically three sets of uh, actors in a IR approach. In this IR approach, that is management, workers, along with workers we can write trade unions, government or state, right? Okay, what about environmental context? Environmental context basically refers to the determinants of IRs on which rules are based. So these are nothing but determinants of IR on which rules are based. So what are these actually determinants as per this approach? Technological characteristics of the workplace. So because they have influence on the drafting of these rules, these are going to act as determinants of this IR. Okay, so technological characteristics of workplace, then market for the output. So if I am saying market for the output, it means the output which is being produced by the firm. Okay, next is your budget constraints, because every organization has limited resources, so there must be budget constraints. So these are also going to impact industrial relations. And next is our relative distribution of powers among actors. So who all are actors in our IR? What is the relative distribution of power among these powers? That becomes the determinant of IR. Okay. Ideology. What do you mean by ideology? Ideology refers to ideas and beliefs held by actors towards what? Towards workplace as well as each other. As well as each other. So whatever ideas and beliefs these actors are holding towards the workplace in which they are working and towards other actors, that sets the ideology. Okay, so this is all about system approach model of the IR. Now Bomber extended this Dunlop system approach further. So before proceeding towards explaining Bomber's extension of the Dunlop model, I must tell you that this Dunlop model was purely national in nature. So it was Bomber who extended this Dunlop model to international level, international industrial relations. Okay, fine. So, and that happened in 1976. Okay, so whatever is being explored by Dunlop, that was extended by Bomber to international industrial relations. And there was a reason behind why Bomber did the extension of Dunlop system model. Because, of course, this is an important model which has been prescribed by Dunlop. Along with that, Bomber was of the view that because there is emergence of more and more MNCs, right? So there must be some approach that must apply to international level, right? So because of the emergence of more and more MNCs, he extended Dunlop model to international level. Okay. So what was the main reason for extension of system model to international level by Bomber? That is emergence of more and more MNCs. Right. So the growth of MNCs made Bomber to extend this model to international level. Okay. So what was the basic extension done by the Bomber? This is the basic Dunlop model that we have three actors, management at this level, like for example, and workers and trade unions on this side, and then we have government or state on one of the vertex, right, of this triangle. Now, according to Bomber, he said there is one MNC, right? It acts as parent company to its subsidiary companies. Let's say there are S1, S2, S3, S4, S5 subsidiary companies to this parent company, right? Here, the management is working. So this MNC is running operations in 5 different countries through management, right? So again, as per Dunlop model, so if there is management, the other two vertices belongs to workers or TUs and government. So workers, government, workers, government, workers, government, workers, government, like this, right? So he said that whatever actors are there in this approach, they are having influence on each other, right? So management is having influence on government, government might be having influence on management, workers or TUs might be having influence on management or government or state, right? So they influence and accordingly the decisions are taken. But with this approach, with Bomber's approach, he explained that because MNC, this is a parent company of these subsidiary, whatever decisions are at managerial level are taken in these subsidiaries, they are influenced by their parent company according to the policies of the parent company, right? And if at all, if something goes wrong in these subsidiaries, this management would be responsible, and the MNC parent company may decide to wrap up the operations in that particular subsidiary in that country, right? So because of all these influences, this management in the subsidiary companies is at better position than at workers and government. So they are having more influence as compared to influence of workers or government on management. Okay, so this is all about Bombers, extension of system model of IR, right?